everyone. Welcome to today's episode. You are in for a treat today, especially if you have been in the position where you have had to care for someone. Maybe you've had health challenges or aging, and you've been a caregiver, or you've had to be in that position and found all the challenges and all of the joys that might go along with that. And my today's guest is going to share with you some of her journey and how she helps others who are in that position or might be in that position in the future. And the truth is, as faith-based people, we have values that facilitate and make us want to be there for our loved ones at every point, and we should be. That's part of our makeup as humans, hopefully, but definitely as kingdom-minded people, that we want to be able to be there in all circumstances, and to be able to do that in a way that actually enhances life for our loved ones, but also for us, that doesn't take away from the quality of our life as well, is so important in our family. So my guest today is Melissa Miller. Welcome, Melissa.
Hey everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. It's a treat to be here.
Well, I'm excited, and you and I just got to know each other, so this is going to be new for me as well. I'm excited for our conversation today. Melissa, I would love it if you would share, first of all, a little bit about, because you call yourself a caregiver and business coach.
hmm
So I would love to know, and I know you're passionate about helping people who are in that caregiving role, about helping them to thrive and to really do that well, right?
Absolutely.
So I would love it if you would share a little bit with our audience of how you became passionate about this.
Well, sure, absolutely. Hey everyone. I'm Melissa Miller. I'm a former certified nursing assistant. I worked in long-term healthcare facilities for 15 years before I segued into the online business world. I really did not plan on ever being a stay-at-home parent or being an online entrepreneur at all. But what happened is we were thrust into a unique situation where my husband became sick. He started having what we now know were epileptic seizures in December of 2019. And then it started out slow. So he only had 3 episodes in the span of 3 months. By April of 2020, after things had shut down from the pandemic, it became harder because we were isolated at home. My husband's health was declining. He blew through uh, one medication in the span of a month. And then we segued from our general neurologist to a neurologist specialist. And so by May, we were transitioning medical care for him. And I was also going on what was supposed to be a 3-week medical leave as we were trying to figure out treatment. And he wasn't officially diagnosed with epilepsy yet. But
Mm.
the summer just did not get any better. He only declined more in health. We blew through another treatment that was failed. And we finally got him diagnosed with epilepsy. And at this point, I had been extending my medical leave throughout the summer. But by July, I decided, you know what? We have a pandemic going on. We had a 1-year-old at the time. My husband's health is not improving. And now that he's diagnosed with a illness that's not curable and is chronic, it does not make sense for me to keep being in the workforce. So I gave my notice at my job, and the little blog that I had been toying around with back in May when I was kind of trying to research options for something remote that I could do that would allow me to just drop things on a fly to triage him if he had a seizure was to do an online business. Everything that was remote, they wanted a certain criteria, X amount of experience, X amount of prior training, certain like credentials in terms of education, like a diploma or a master's or anything that you can think of. And so from there, it just really began. I began this process of figuring out who I wanted to be, and it's taken me 4 years, but I'm finally figuring out who I want to be. And over the last year and a half, it's really become clear to me that coaching, care, coaching caregiver entrepreneurs is really my passion because I'm doing that as well. I'm caring for a family, and I have a chronically ill spouse, and I also cared for my father the last 2 years of his life
Mm.
until he passed away in July. So I want to use the knowledge I have from being a professional caregiver for 15 years and also just teach people are who are entrepreneurs to realize that if you're also learning how to adjust balancing caregiving, whether it's for a chronically ill family member, be it a spouse, parent, grandparent, or aging parent, you don't have to choose. It doesn't have to be a choice between going after your goals in your business or honoring the wishes of your loved one and caring for them. It's not easy. I'm not going to lie. It's not been easy, but I feel like this is what the Lord wants me to do because I have a unique skill set and it's given me a chance to just share my story in a unique way that I never thought would have been possible. And whatever we are gifted with, it's a ministry. Is my business Christian based? Not necessarily, but the essence of what I do is still ministering to others, and that's what I know God is asking of me.
It's so good. I've had the opportunity to be a caregiver a few times to family members, and so I'm intimately acquainted with that. But what I love about what you bring to the table is not only from your profession, your former profession, but now from the real life experience. So not
Mhm.
just from your training, but now from close to home experience that you have. I'm wondering when you started to do that, like, for your husband and
Mhm.
for just being able what were some of the things that were different for you, that came up for you that maybe didn't come up for you when you were caring for someone maybe in your profession?
I know, right? Well, it felt like I will say it really felt like I was back in medical school or medical training when I
Mm,
started caring for him because in my 15-year career, I never had a patient with a seizure disorder or epilepsy specifically. There's all gamut of seizures, but the thing about seizure disorders is that they, are unpredictable. You could have
mm,
50 people in the same room, and they would all have a different diagnosis, and they're not
wow.
curable, and it's really right now, unfortunately, this is an illness compared to, like, what you can expect with, like, Alzheimer's, dementia,
Mm,
kidney failure, name it. I've had a lot of other patients that had other types of health issues that you kind of know what to expect. With
mm,
seizure disorders, it's really you're jumping in feet first and it's just hit and miss because you have to
mm,
try a gamut of things to see what works for your loved one. Because even if you have a family member that has had it, it doesn't matter. You're dealing with someone's unique brain. And
mhm,
so even if you have a loved one that has it, I guarantee you they will not respond the same way to treatment like you will because they have you might have similar traits, but it's still you're we're all unique. And so what works for one person isn't going to 100% work for another. So that was really frustrating is to dive into trying to research about how to manage this illness and find out there's no streamlined treatment. It's pretty much guinea pig style where they just start you on something to just try to figure out what works. There's no streamlined test. It's really the culmination of if you've had X amount of seizures within or a cluster within a close amount of time, and there's no cure. You're
mm,
dealing with the ultimate organ here, the brain, which is the most complex organ. And that's really tough, to care for someone that's dealing with an illness that's incurable,
mm,
chronic, unpredictable. And so for my skill set is I'm used to kind of being able to figure things out and run with it. But this was just so new. And
mm,
it was also really intense because it's your loved one. It was tough, don't get me wrong, professionally,
yeah,
seeing my clients and their families going through these really hard situations, especially with dealing with dementia and seeing them not become their loved one anymore in essence and seeing them go slowly versus quickly, like with a sudden infection or something like that. With epilepsy, it's at a younger age. I mean, most of the time seizure disorders are caught in children, or you kind of know it's coming down the pipeline if you do have medical history. But my husband's in that 20% where, for no apparent reason,
mhm,
he contracted a seizure disorder and it's impacted him the rest of his life. So we had just become parents and went through 6 years of infertility, and then to have this hit when we're trying to become new parents. I was a new mom with a 1-year old when he started getting sick. So I was juggling trying to how to become a mom. We were dealing with a pandemic, and then I'm dealing with an illness that has a gamut of unknowns. So it was challenging. It was challenging to figure out how to make this work.
wow, yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the other kinds of challenges, like, as a caregiver, well, now because you're 24/7, you're on call and you're there. What are some of the challenges that a caregiver faces that maybe and I know you talk about this as one of the things that you help people do, create these simple stress-free systems to
Yes.
why would this be important for a caregiver to know these systems and to implement them? What are they helping them to prevent or to do?
Okay, stress-free systems, excuse me, are so important. Why? Because when you're a caregiver, you're thrown into unpredictable situations every day. It's your stress is higher, your cortisol level will shoot up. It's just a mess. And so, one thing that we like as human beings is structure. We like to know what's happening. But unfortunately, when you're caring with someone with a chronic illness, you never know when it's going to be a day from hell or when it's going to be a day where it's smooth and you can actually enjoy life. That's just the way the cookie
It's
crumbles.
true.
And so systems go so far in helping you have some structure in your life, but also leave it open ended to some degree. So if things happen, like right now, if my husband had a seizure right now, I'd be dropping this call and running and triaging him because he has to have rescue medications. I have to clock the seizures to see if they go over 5 minutes. Because if they're over 5 minutes, I'm calling 911 and we're sending him to the hospital to have him evaluated in case there's other brain damage or something else going on, especially or a concussion, especially if he falls, if it's an unwitnessed fall. So, having systems on, let's start with the caregiving side. So, the biggest one that will save you some time, especially in those unpredictable medical situations, or even just for weekly, monthly medical appointments or quarterly appointments, is having all your loved one's medical information documented in one spot. So, I'm
Mm,
talking rules. So, my basic thumb is have dates of diagnosis, all procedures, medications, dosage, and the rules why you give them. So, like for example, my husband takes one medication every day to manage his seizures, but then he has two rescue situation meds for different situations. One's for if he's unresponsive and it's obviously not safe that he even has the capacity to swallow, and then the other one is that if he is awake and can safely swallow. And
mm,
then emergency contacts, um, all information for your insurance. And
right.
think about what hospitals and urgent care facilities take your insurance. Have that written down. Addresses, phone numbers, and then lastly is your doctors. Everything, primary,
Right.
specialist, anybody that you have, because
Mhm,
we're in a digital age. So what happens is after you've been in an urgent care facility or a hospital, is they will direct, fax, email that stuff to your doctor. But still, it's good to have a copy for yourself or little notes. I have a medical binder on my desk actually for my husband, and I have um, a basic rough draft of all the stuff that we've done, and then I have a whole notebook full of notes for every episode. And this becomes helpful again when you're doing your follow-up appointments following a stay in the hospital for either whether it was emergency related or for a procedure or urgent care visit if something happened. Then you don't have to think about what happened. You have it
mhm.
all documented. So whenever I go to any medical appointment, that notebook's with me. And I'm
Wow.
referencing it of, oh, hey, okay, yeah, he's done better with this medication, but oh, we had a spike on this day. Or actually, the other day, I noticed him doing this, and this is new. As a caregiver, it's your job to have the most information on hand for your doctors because you're the eyes
Mm,
and ears. It goes back to kind of progress notes. So for those of you who are listening who might have a loved one or know someone who's been a nurse or a doctor, we document. The more
mhm,
information we have, the better it is for us to make decisions about that patient's plan of
mhm.
care. When we know what's going on, we can kind of create patterns. It gives a little clue. So something as simple as like they like yesterday they could walk, yes, today they couldn't, or if you're noticing a change in mood and behavior and strength, vision, appetite, sleeping habits,
Mhm.
all these things are important because it could be
Yes.
a result of their illness. But think about that. Think about this though too. Their treatments, they
Yeah.
could be having a side effect to their medication. That was the problem with my husband is he was so most of his medications, the big side effect is sleep.
Mhm.
So he would just be so snowed and couldn't function because he was just so drugged up. And that was terrible for his mental health because he couldn't feel like he was a present spouse or father or
Mhm.
even at his job. He was just struggling to get through his hours at work. And so this information saves you both daily and kind of getting a handle on the patterns of your loved one's illness. But man, does it pay off when when you're trying to powwow with your medical team about what to do next, what is working, what's not working, what can we ditch, and what do we need to maybe kind of amp up on because we're seeing something here.
That's so
Um,
good. It's so
Yeah,
good. I just wanna say that, I know after caring for my husband when he was really ill that, like, days run into each other. So,
they do.
you
They do.
you just forget, "Oh, what day was that?" So, what you're talking about, Melissa, is so important. I know it takes that little bit of extra work, but like you said, it saves you so much time on the other end and so much headache on the other end for your loved one as well to be able to get the care in a timely manner and the right kind of care that they need based on the documentation.
Right. Well, and think about it too, like, okay, I'm a solo caregiver. It's just
Mhm.
me. But for some of you listening, maybe you have a caregiver or you know someone who's
Yes.
adjusting care for someone that needs more 24/7 care. Not necessarily in a facility, but there's home health,
Mhm.
there's hospice, or maybe even neighbors or family members. They need to know too. So I also helped care for my grandma the last 2 years of her life. Our family collectively did that, and we would take turns taking her into our homes to take care of her, or we would go to her house and take care of her because she did not want to go to a facility, and we honored that wish. So what we did there is we had a family chat going on, so we could update like whenever whose turn was going on, we could blow it up with some information. We also had a notebook, so that way any spot that her medical team would know whose house she would be at on X amount of days. And then they could look through the notebook as well, and we could reference it too, because again, like you say, days run into each other. Um, it becomes your best friend because then you have a document. It's a document, and so you can take it with you and
Mhm.
reference it, and you can add to it. And so, again, knowledge is
Good.
power. So having the most information for the entire medical team, not just doctors or EMTs or urgent care professionals, but hospice, home health, or any other family members that you have or neighbors, whatever your situation is, to know what's going on with your loved one's care. So that kind of a system is critical as a caregiver.
That's so good. So let's switch gears here from the last few minutes that we have in talking about the financial aspect and what are some things that you help others do as well. Because I can imagine you all already mentioned that you gave up your career to
Mhm.
care for your spouse and others who you're caring for. I imagine with your husband's condition that he probably had to give up his career.
Partly, yes. He's working part-time hours now. And we've had to collect like stuff from the state, social security, disability, things like that. So that's another system is look at the rules for your state. I wish everything would be always the same and it would just not be such a headache, but unfortunately, the rules vary from state to state. So definitely leverage Social Security disability if your loved one is disabled and they're of working age. Definitely look at food stamps. Definitely look at Medicaid. We've had to over the years at times. Look at if you're in a situation like I know for us before we got my husband's benefits coming in, we were definitely leaning on financial aid from a couple institutions here in the valley where we live for help with rent when we were renting before we got our house, and also um, food banks, and also look at other things you can do just online in terms of research. So I'm talking caregiving support groups. Even if you don't hire a coach or mentor like myself, look at support groups. Okay,
Mhm.
because Facebook is a gold mine for that, okay? I know social media sometimes gets a bad rap and everything else, but it's also a gold mine, guys, because a lot of groups now are coming up now, especially post COVID. A lot more people have had health issues that were brewing before then that got put by the wayside, so now they're even worse. And then, or people have because of COVID having it, they've had some now chronic health issues moving forward that are permanent. And people are also becoming more of them are becoming caregivers. And
Mhm.
so, Facebook is a gold mine for looking for specific caregiving groups related to your situation. So whether you're a mom, or I've seen a few for seizures, or even like if you're caring for a spouse or an aging parent, whatever bracket you're in, or if you're a sandwich generation like I was for a while, where I was caring for my husband and I was caring for my father, that was insane. So look at what are the resources you have both online, Facebook wise, or online. You can just Google it. Also look in your community. Congregations of faith might have different groups or support groups that could week, or community centers. That could be a good place to look. Look around you for resources, okay? Because you are not supposed to do this alone. You can't do this alone. There is no way that you can do it. So you might have to get creative but there's definitely ways to offset the financial cost, to offset mental and emotional and spiritual um, impact, and also to just be able to just be more organized with being able to manage being a caregiver, but also being a business owner too. And that's a whole nother topic in of itself.
It is, yeah, because, I would say, especially with being not really having the same kind of flexibility and freedom when you are caring for someone, to be able to have a way that you can be getting some income, or somehow work, for one, from a financial point of view, but the other part is, I think, even for yourself, to be able to have some
Absolutely.
other outlet where you are being fed, you're being poured into, but also that you have a sense of a purpose beyond this. If not minimizing the caregiving, because it's really an important part, but for your own health and well-being as well. I would imagine that's crucial.
That's been the most interesting thing about this whole journey is initially when I started my business, I was trying to find a way to bring in income. So, and I'm still not quite where I want to be. Obviously, it's still growing and I've learned a lot, and I've had a lot of interruptions because of multiple caregiving things. We lost my mom, then my dad got sick,
Mm,
and I cared for him the last 2 years, and then my husband's been sick obviously for the last four of my online journey. So it's been a rough 4 years, and then I'm a mom. I have an almost 5-year-old now. So
mm.
life has been crazy. Has the timeline to getting my business, my coaching practice up and going gone the way I wanted? No. But at the same time, like you say, having my podcast, creating my website, doing networking like this has been so fun. And it has been rewarding to have intentional conversations where I share my work, I share my story, and I help somebody. And that is something I will say, if you are interested in starting a business, that's where it can really be a form of self-care, because as a caregiver, you become lost in the crowd, in the moment.
Mhm.
And it's not selfish for you to do something for yourself, okay? Whether that is starting a business or whether it's taking 15-minute breaks, what I call them, throughout the day to drink, have a glass of water, get outside, dance to your favorite, boy band or whatever. I don't care. Just do something for you, because if you don't take care of your mind, body, or soul, you're no good to your spouse. You're no good to whoever you're caring
Children.
for, your kids. And if you are an entrepreneur, you're no good to your clients. And you're no good to yourself, because you have this one life. And I do not want you throwing it by the wayside on this beautiful opportunity that God has given you to live your one best life. But it does take you taking the initiative to create and figure out what that best life is. And it's going to change. I mean, my business model looks totally different now, 4 years in than it does, or 3 years in than it did 3 years ago when I started. So, but that's okay. And it's been and that's part of the fun and adventure of the learning curve. So I don't regret anything that I've experienced at all. None whatsoever.
So good. Well, this has been such a great conversation, Melissa, and hopefully for you who are listening today, that it has helped you to reflect on some of the systems that you might need to put in place in your own life, if you are, excuse me, if you are a caregiver, if you found yourself in that, whether short term, long term, it doesn't really matter. It's being able to make sure that you have the systems in place that are going to make that time not only for you to maintain your health and well being, but also for those who you are caring for, to be able to walk through that time in a way that really helps in other ways. So I appreciate you, Melissa. Thank you so much for the conversation today. And if people want to stay connected with you, we're going to put the link down below, but if you can let me know right now, where would they go?
Oh gosh, your girl's everywhere. Okay, you can find
On
me on
Facebook?
you can find me on Instagram at Melissa Miller 2011. That's my primary place to hang out. So I post daily tip videos over there. I promote my podcast over there. So go check me out over
Okay.
there. I'm on Facebook at Caregiving Entrepreneurship Reimagined. YouTube, that's where I also repurpose my podcast and I do other shorts over there at Caregiver Entrepreneur Reimagined. And then my website, www.caregivingentrepreneurshipreimagine.com. That's where you can shoot me a DM over there or email me at melissamiller@tyrosupermom.com. And wherever you find me, just be ready.
He's
Buckle
all
up.
over the place.
I'm all over the place. I got good stuff coming in 2024, so definitely be
Oh,
on the lookout. I got good stuff coming.
Can't wait to hear all about it. Well, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for tuning in today. Make sure you share this with people that you know would benefit from this and who would like to get in touch with Melissa. And we can't wait to see what 2024 is going to bring to you. And I just want to say that you have a message that the world needs to hear. No matter what you've walked through, someone else can learn and benefit from the experiences and the lessons you've learned, but also where you've overcome is part of the authority that you're put on the earth to walk in terms of helping others overcome in those same areas. So I want to encourage you listening today that you have a voice and that your voice needs to be heard. And God is looking for women, especially in 2024. There's a lot of words about women rising up. I mean, it's been happening for the last couple of years, but there's an escalation and momentum because God is needing his daughters to step into the place, come out of the caves, come out of hiding, and step into your calling so that your voice is heard and the kingdom is advanced wherever you are. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time. As you're listening today, you may have felt prompted to say, I want to become a much better speaker. I want to be able to speak with confidence, clarity, and transformational impact. I want to invite you to check out the link in the comments below, wherever you're listening to this. Your voice is an instrument of transformation and needs to be heard, so let it be heard.